Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nemeka Onyeka Adereri. I want to humbly address a recent declaration by the governor of Anambra State, Professor Charles Soludo. You know, he hosted some group of a group known as the Igbo integration movement, where he was, you know, where he passionately stated that Igbo does not need to, you know, contest to become president or to govern Nigeria, blah blah blah. That what Igbo should be driving at is how they will, you know, participate and how they can build an economic bulwark. In fact, he went on to list out things Igbo should be clamoring for. Instead of clamoring for leadership at the center, he mentioned that the fact that Igbo should talk about being included in the national gas pipeline, that Igbo should talk about being included in the national rail master plan, and Igbo should talk about being, you know, being allowed or dredging the River Niger to enable seaports. You know, it's so shocking that a professor of economics, one who has been former CBN governor, one who was economic advisor to Obasanjo, one who had participated, who is a very good friend of Muhammadu Buhari and a very close friend of current President Tinubu, for over the last 11 years. I've not read anywhere, not seen anywhere, not seen any position paper by Charles Soludo, not seen anything Chukwuma had done to pressure Buhari. Buhari did rail projects. Chukwuma was one of those who lampooned Jonathan, who eviscerated Okojiwala. In fact, Charles Soludo was one of those who led the savagery of Ngozi Okojiwala as the then finance minister and coordinating minister of the economy. In fact, it was one of his attacks, some of his attacks, that even made some people to begin to question the PhD that Okojiwala had. Even some of them even went as far as asking the universities that gave him doctorate to withdraw it. Charles was at the forefront because they were playing politics of, you know, everything Jonathan was bad so that they could bring him Buhari. Buhari came in. Buhari did the 156-kilometer Lagos to Ibadan rail project that cost us so much, 3 times what it cost other people that did similar projects other places. Buhari did projects all the way from the way from Kaduna to Maradi. Charles Soludo was part of that team. Charles Soludo was part of the presidential advisory team of Buhari. Amechi was minister for transport for 8 years. Both Chukwuma and Amechi, very close APC people. It never dawned on them to beg Buhari to link Igbo with the national standard gauge rate. It do not the interesting thing. The most lucrative rail routes in the whole of West Africa is the Lagos, Shagamu, Djibouti, Ore, Asaba, Onitsha, Owerri, Port Harcourt, Seko Baka Aba, to Umuahia, to Okigwe, to Afikpo, to Abakaleke, all the way to Oka, to Enugu, back to Oka, to Onitsha, Lincoln Onitsha. It's a rail project that will take about $5.2 billion to do under a PPP framework, 45 years build, operate, and transfer, with all the 11 states involved participating. It's a rail project that has over 200 million tons of cargo traffic every year. It's a rail project that has over 200 to 500 million passenger traffic every year. It's a rail project that carried over $2.5 billion annually. It never occurred to Chukwuma and his people in APC and Rotimi Amechi to convince Buhari. He was part of the economic advisory of Buhari to do this. It never occurred to Charles Soludo. Yar'Adua, before he died, started awarded contract to dredge River Niger. In fact, to dredge River Niger from the escravos to River Niger is something that can easily be done with very, very under a PPP framework. Do you know the interesting thing? Chukwuma wants us to grovel to have us include national gas pipeline. When 60% of the gas reserve in Nigeria, out of the 60% is actually in Igbo. One of the biggest contractors who understood, the 2 biggest contractors who understand how to lay pipelines, gas pipelines, and Igbo, Emeka Okuwosa for himself, and Ernest Odejosi of Nakonde Nest Oil. The biggest dredger in the whole of West Africa, the biggest dredging company, formerly Los Beja Dredgers, was acquired by Ernest Nemeka Obejesi. So, in terms of technical capacity, we have Igbo that can actually drive this. Okay, why Soludo is waiting for us to beg the federal government to integrate us into it and not seek for political office? Governor Hope Uzodimma, go to Imo State to see the kind of things Hope is doing in the gas area. Hope is building energy industrial estates. Hope is doing the Orashi River Port. In fact, the Orashi River Port had been stored because, because of the issues of pipelines, oil pipelines that pass through the waterways that need to be navigated and moved. If not, if Hope had followed up and has, if not for some of those initial stages, Orashi will have gone so far. At least Hope had the presence of mind to initiate the dredging of the Orashi all the way from Atlantic into Oguta to have Orashi River Port. That's the thinking governor. Hope may not be a professor, but Hope is still smart. You will never see Hope play stupid politics. Hope's relationship with the center has actually benefited in Dimo more than Anambra State. If there's any governor in the whole of the Southeast that have taken practical steps to do projects, to put in place infrastructure that had the greatest catalytic effect to enhancing productivity in the whole of Igbo, is Hope Uzodimma. But you will never see Hope playing the kind of stupid and silly politics. We know all these things he's doing. Everything you see him doing is just nothing but envy for his kingsman who is running for president. He thinks he's the only cock that will call Igbo. You see, the interesting thing that Hope Uzodimma and Alex was actually closer to Bola Tinubu. But interestingly, you will never see them vilify anybody, or you will never see any two of them attack anybody, accuse anybody, curse anybody. You will see them running on their own lane, doing their politics, and using their politics to do infrastructure that will catalyze productivity in Igbo. And I want us to know this: Igbo does not need Abuja to link us into the national gas infrastructure of Nigeria. We can do it. All we need to do is to get licenses and approval from the relevant agencies. Under a PPP framework, we can create industrial hubs in Igbo, do gas processing plants, CNG, LNG, using some of the gas wells in Igbo, and pipe them or even virtually carry them into those industrial hubs. Igbo does not need the federal government to spoon feed us to do rail links infrastructure that link the whole of Igbo and link us to Asaba, and then work with our sister states, Ogun State, Ondo State, and Lagos State, to create the western route under a PPP to work. If Soludo so much believes in some of the latest postulation that he's doing, why has he not put up an economic team that will come up with a blueprint and beg his sister governors to come together under the SEDC that is even managed by his boy to see how we can drive this thing? It's not enough to talk cho. Hope is doing river port. Hope is doing energy city. Hope is doing a 385 megawatts power station. Hope is doing massive road infrastructure in Igbo, in Imo State. LS has just 3 years in the saddle. Go and see what he's doing. The worst thing that can happen to an Igbo man is to be a curse and a yoke to his own people. Yes, all of us must not be in the same political party. I don't believe even in the parties. What I want is a Nigeria that benefits everybody. A Nigeria where justice, where faithfulness, where all inclusivity and excellence and merit leads the fray. All these petty politics that he's playing, we know where it is coming from. We know where it is going to. Igbo does not need to beg for power. To build economic Igbo, we can build the economy of the Southeast to over $500 billion over the next 10 years if we have governors and political officers that coordinating together. Igbo can be as big as Bavaria in Germany. But all this crap mentality, political crap mentality, pull him down. If it's not me, if it's going to be an Igbo president, it must be me. He's not going to help us. Go to Hope Uzodimma, go to Alex Uti, and learn how to integrate central politics to developing your state, and not all this nonsense people are doing in Anambra State. God bless you.